Welcome to Massive Beers. My name is Matt. We do the beer stuff here. Yeah, a little bit of a multi-stage, probably the best way to put it. Beer, hopeful goodness in the form of Magnify Brewing Born Day. So I just went on a local trip, went down to Warwick Farm Brewing, met up with a couple different people. One of those people was Mikey from down Warwick Way. He actually lives probably 2 minutes away from Warwick Brewing. He ended up giving me a kind of little cellar stash of stouts, and a bulk of it was Magnify Brewing a Born Day series, which is their kind of barrel aged series they do for the anniversary of the brewery. He gave me 2 7th anniversaries, 1 8th anniversary, and we're just going to do them all kind of in tandem. We're going to do them, review them individually, and then maybe do like a little special recap cuvee kind of thing. Once we review them all, we'll try to do them pretty quick. And anyway, what are we doing today? This is their Born Day gold label, 7th anniversary Imperial Stout. Now, what is this beer? On the side here, it's a 7th anniversary birthday cake Imperial Stout brewed with cake batter, aged in 7-year W.L. Weller bourbon barrels for 1 year, and conditioned on double coconut and almonds. 12.5% alcohol by volume. You can see that sucker right there. Let's do it. We have 3 of these to do. I kind of entertained the thought of maybe doing these in like a side by side, but these kind of big, behemoth-y beers, I just can't, I'm not a young fella. Can't really do that nowadays, so we'll see how this sucker shows and proves. So you're talking about 7th anniversary Magnify. I believe that was 2022, which would make this 3 years old. So pastry stout that's 3 years old. We'll see where we land. Label-wise, it's what Magnify does. Not going to hate on it, but also, it's what Magnify does. A little bit of kind of floaties floating around in there. It's kind of be hard for me to kind of show you, but if you've ever had like a prairie beer, you know what I'm talking about. Outside of that, a little bit of particulate floating on the edges, a bit of carbonation left, which is always a good sign for an older beer, and dark as dark can be. So you're talking about a birthday cake stout, barrel aged, all kinds of coconut, and what was the last ingredient here? We're talking about almonds. So yeah, it's good nose. Honestly, smells like, a couple-year-old barrel-aged stout. There's really not this big confectionery thing thrown out there. It really is more kind of like a sweeter stout with a bit of barreling, and that's pretty much it. There's really not a huge nose in this sucker. It smells nice, but it's not like jumping out of the glass, 2x4 to the face, any of that stuff. It just has this kind of like nice kind of barrel-aged component with a bit of sweeter kind of confectionariness to it. So, yeah. Can't get over the particulate. I don't know if you can actually see that on there. There's just like bits and pieces of things clinging about the beer. So, yeah, pretty much all we get in the nose. Let's just dive into the taste. Cheers, y'all. Way more aggressive on the taste and the nose will lead you to believe. Actually, very tasty, man. It has this very aggressive pastry kind of desserty kind of vibe to it without getting overly aggressive, without getting overly sweet. Super impressive, actually. Based off of nose, I thought it was going to be a little bit of a letdown reading what's on the actual label of the bottle, but then going into the taste. But it's actually not that. It's actually a very, very tasty barrel-aged pastry stout. First things first, let's talk about the negatives here. I think you have a little bit of a negative kind of carbonation mouthfeel on this. You're talking about all these adjuncts, talking about all these bits and pieces in a several-year-old, we're talking about at least 3-year-old beer here. Not a surprise, so I'm not going to sit here and get like on my soapbox and kind of get like too hot and bothered about the mouthfeel in here. In a perfect world, you have a little bit more carbonation, a little bit more mouthfeel. Outside of that, very tasty. Oddly enough, it has this like, it talks about birthday cake. It has this birthday cake kind of vibe to it. My wife's birthday just passed. Micah's birthday wasn't too long ago. My mother-in-law. So, like, I'm not a big dessert guy, but I've had my fair share of birthday cake, and it elicits those kind of vibes. And that's probably, I guess you'd say, probably the coolest part about it. It doesn't taste like birthday cake. It kind of gives you the vibes of a birthday cake, which is probably the coolest way kind of beer kind of shows those kind of things, rather than ramming it with all these kind of confectionery flavors. It reminds you of those things. So that's kind of fun. The beer's there. It has this nice kind of roastiness to it. It's not like roasty, toasty, big over-the-top stuff. I think age has tempered that a bit. But you have this kind of nice kind of base, roasty beer base. And then you get those little bit of adjuncts in there, a decent amount of adjuncts, I should probably say. Coconut leading the way. I mean, they talk about double coconut in here. It's not like Last Snow... funky Buddha kind of coconut, where it's like the super like almond joy kind of coconut, but it's not like barrel aged coconut either. It's somewhere falling in between, so it doesn't get hyper aggressive, but it's definitely there. You get this nice kind of big, without being overly cloying, kind of vanilla component. You get this little bit of spirit kind of heat to it, but again, since you're dealing with a decent amount of sweetness, it kind of tempers that the way the hops kind of temper a bit of sweetness. You're having this kind of just a combination of this sweetness and that coconut and everything kind of working together, where it doesn't get too like overly heavily handed. I think this is a fun beer. That's probably the best way I can like compartmentalize it, at least from like an initial standpoint of diving into the first of three. It has this really fun combination of flavors that I honestly, not that I go into these with preconceived notions, I kind of didn't expect here, but I'm getting it. So I'm kind of excited to dive into the other ones and see where they land, and hopefully we do follow through with all this and do like that kind of master cuvee at the end and see how everything kind of blends together. But beer is there, that confectionery kind of birthday cakey kind of vibe is there. Think like it's not even cakey, it's almost like old-fashioned donut kind of vibes. That's the way the kind of flavor comes off to me. And then you have that spirit in there, not hyper aggressive, not a huge barrel component, but since you are getting a ton of coconut with that extra added coconut, it gives you this kind of rich, kind of barrel-aged vibe with that spirit kind of following through with a little bit of zing on the back end. And, I always kind of like, not poo-poo, but kind of talk about nuts and almonds being a little bit hard to kind of pull off in beer. I feel like there's like a nice kind of, almost like, not necessarily like a nuttiness from almond, but like a, like you're cooking with almond, like you're reducing, caramelizing a something for a food portion of show, and you have a ton of almond in there. That's the way it kind of comes off. So, not gonna lie, very, very fun beer. Thank you very much, Mikey, for dropping this on me. And it's weird because if I'm gonna sit here and say it's one of the better barrel aged beers I've had as late, this really kind of get to like Mount Rushmore status on that sense for me. Is it one of the better pastry stouts I've had as of late? Even there, it's towards the top, and I'm really getting there for me. Is it one of the better older, aged, has some time kind of pastry stouts? I think that's where it really kind of like leaps ahead, becomes something that's kind of very, very fun, because it is a cool beer if you're okay with pastry stout. That's the thing here. And some people get a little high horsey, and pastry stout isn't beer, and get a little bit kind of just highfalutin when it comes to these kind of beers. When you're talking about a barrel-aged pastry stout that has a couple of years on it, man, you're going to be hard-pressed to find something markedly better. I will say this, though. If you have this in your cellar, if this is something you've been kind of sitting on, probably best to drink it now. I don't think this has long legs to it. I don't think it's going to be something that kind of ends up being, a long-term ager. More moving parts. Kind of hard to have these beers kind of age out and become something super graceful in the end. But you're talking about the first foray into 3-beer series of a pastry stout. Kind of excited. Kind of excited to dive into it. And very fun beer. So again, thank you very much, Mikey, for passing this along. And say, like I said, barrel stout, Mount Rushmore status, no. Pastry stout, barrel aged, very close. Aged one, yes. I mean, having these beers age gracefully is very difficult, and this one is one of the ones that have aged quite well. With the old asterisks of, if you have this, I wouldn't wait too much longer to drink it. Let's put it that way. So there we go. Review in the books. Hopefully you enjoyed. Massive Beers, if you want to check me out, doing the social media stuff, Beer Mastiff. If you want to hear me doing the whole podcasting thing. And Magnify, have you had their beers? Have you been to the brewery? Have you had this beer? What was this beer like fresh? What was it like aged? Have you had it recently? All that fun stuff down below. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully you're enjoying a little bit of aged pastry stout. Localish aged pastry stout right now. And hopefully see you next time. Cheers.